Bridge with Kira is sponsored by the original Done Right Buffalo Wing Sauce. If you're looking for something spicy and different, look no further. The original Done Right Buffalo Wing Sauce is all you'll need. It's good on everything. Homemade goodness from Riverview, New Brunswick. Shipping's available, so check them out. www.dunrightbuffalowingsauce.com. Hi everyone, welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio. Tonight we're simulcasting with Real Liberty Media, and as usual I'm in my truck, which says it's 103 degrees, so I apologize for having it on and having fans and things like that going, but such is life when you live in the woods and can't get a signal. So, thanks everybody for joining me. Tonight, Vince Easley is going to be my assistant producer. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you, Kara. Glad to be along with you. So we've got this weekend together and next, and I'll be stepping out and away from the internet for a while. My first leg of my journey starts with a 9-mile river run, which I'm unless I decide to extend it, I'm gonna make it a week run, and some way out in the middle of nowhere place for me.
Good times. And Vince will be monitoring the chat rooms on Revolution Radio and Real Liberty Media. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in there. Tonight I have a really interesting guest that I hope you're all going to enjoy meeting. I'm certainly going to enjoy meeting him for the first time. He's part of the Winnipeg Sync community. I've been having a lot of guests on the show who are into this synchro mysticism, and each time we find out a little bit more about what that might mean. So, without further ado, welcome to The Bridge, Jake Kotze.
Hi, Kira.
Hi. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me tonight or today.
It's a pleasure.
I like to give my guests the opportunity to sort of define themselves instead of me really doing that too much for them, because I noticed when I first started out that I would introduce somebody and I would have a totally different idea about who they were than they had, and so they would correct me. So I'm just going to give you the opportunity to do that for yourself.
Okay. Well, I have no idea where to start. Like, yeah. I guess I'm fascinated with synchronicity. Is sort of the primary thing. I have been for as long as I can remember, really. and just been exploring that through social media, and just learned to sort of notice synchronicities in the media and the environment that surrounds me, and realizing that one can share that through social media and through the movies is sort of a big aspect of my sync work, because it's sort of something that we all are familiar with, and you can kind of catch it. Like, I can't always capture a moment of a synchronicity happening in my day-to-day life. Sometimes you can, if you're lucky with photographs and if you have the right context. But for the most part, having something like film that is static, like the movie exists, you can go and highlight a scene from it and then highlight a scene from another movie, show how they connect, and you got something stable, that a base that you can work from, where you can show all these connections. And that then applies to me to everything else. So that's sort of that's probably the main focus I feel of my work, is to sort of share synchronicity through the media that I am exposed to. And then, doing that on Twitter and Instagram and through videos that I put up. So I think that's roughly it.
And well, there's a spiritual element to it, or a learning about yourself and the world element to it. Some people might not really like the word spirituality. They might associate it with religion, but it seems like with the synchronicity, you're really pulling from everything. So it's not one particular tradition that you're pulling from.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I'm not shy of the word spirituality. I feel I resonate certainly with spirituality. I just understand spirituality meaning there's sort of, spirit is sort of diffuse. It's not localized. It's everywhere. That's sort of the thing that happens in my mind when I say the word spirit, is I think of like a field, or something that's like not like particles, not like rational, something everywhere. And that's the insights that I get through synchronicity, is something about a field, or an energy, or a presence that's not localized. And that to me is a spiritual thing. So synchronicity does, though I use all these worldly things, the movies and media, and it points to me towards an insight about the nature of experience itself. And that's a spiritual insight, what reality is and what consciousness is, and the relationship between the witness and the world. There's a deep spiritual sort of, to me, synchronicity is just things going together. You're noticing connections, and this is the union of everything. Just from certain perspectives, you notice it, and then you go, oh, a sync. But this is what everything is in union. So, not everybody likes the idea of a spiritual insight through synchronicity, but that's really what it comes down to, in my view. Yeah.
It seems to be a reminder of how everything is connected. So whatever angle you look from, you can find all these connections that are there under the surface, whether you notice them or not.
Totally.
And then when you begin to notice them, you start noticing them more and more and more.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, it seems to me that's what perception is. Perception is connections. There's no understanding of all the stuff happening around you if you don't have like a narrative. So you experience the reality through telling yourself a story about how it all goes together. Okay, I'm sitting in my room and I'm looking out the window, and there's trees, and trees are things that are on the planet, and there's a narrative, and that's a sync. So there's there's sync that's mundane and everyday, and we just call it life, or, the day to day. And then there's ones that, shine really bright and stick out, and we can't necessarily see what caused it. So we go, "Ooh, that's a sync." But to me, really, those are just on the extreme end of experience, we call it synchronicity. And on the low end of experience, we just call it happening. So it's, to me, like the fundamental building block of experience is connection or story or sync. And the really extreme ones we call synchronicity. But if you start really thinking about it, you realize, well, everything goes together, and everything actually, if you want to like focus on this, I've experimented over the years. Like if you focus on any particular thing that you can possibly conceive of and start meditating on it, you start realizing you'll start to see it in everything. It'll come up in books. It'll come up in movies. It'll come up in conversations that you're having with people, and you're like, well, what is this? Like, how is whatever I choose in my environment connected to everything else and part of the synchronicity web? And it's like, to me, it's just clear that it's because everything is connected. Everything is one. And this is the simple thing about synchronicity. It's actually a very simple insight. It's a very simple understanding and meaning. And it's what sages and prophets and gurus and saints and what everybody have been saying. We're all one consciousness. And everything is connected. Everything is one. And sync is the rational mind noticing that. And it's what, it's what modern people call one of the doorways to noticing their own infinite, eternal and diffuse consciousness or spirit, or whatever you want to call it. So
how is this voyage or this discovery, this journey for you? How has it changed the way that you? How has it evolved? So you started making these YouTube videos, and they've changed, and so how has it changed you, do you think?
I guess the major change would be thinking of the world as, okay, what's the source of synchronicity? That would be like the thing that you're trying to deal with when you're starting to look into it. What causes synchronicity? And if you're thinking of the world as this sort of external, separate thing from yourself, and you're looking for what causes synchronicity, then you keep just dealing with the question in the most, sensible way that you have, given the narratives you have in your tool bag, basically. So if you grow up being taught about, religions, or then you might think, well, okay, maybe it's God causing these synchronicities. Or if you grow up sort of westernized, you might, okay, maybe it's some kind of science thing that's causing these synchronicities, some kind of scientific principle of reality that we don't understand yet, but we're starting to perceive. Okay, so maybe it's some phenomena of space-time. Or if you're like, conspiracy, if you have like a conspiracy outlook of the world, you can for a while like think of synchronicity as like some kind of plot against you, like somebody's causing these things to happen, which is a fascinating view, and it's one that I held for a while and that I was still dealing with sort of at the beginning of making sync videos. Is sort of the idea that there are entities or groups or something that are interacting with my daily experience that are influencing it and then causing synchronicities to happen. So but it's peculiar because it's kind of like it's woven into the fabric of your everyday. So your story keeps getting more elaborate and strange, and you can actually see this on the internet. Like if you look at a lot of people who investigate synchronicity and what they think it is. If you think it's something that's coming from the world, something external, not from, your own spiritual heart self kind of thing, then you need a really alien, peculiar, view of what is causing this, because it needs to be something that's, depending on how far you're going with synchronicity. You could think it's like a group that influences just the movie. So you could say it's some kind of like conspiracy of Hollywood to like put things in films that program us or have an agenda to manipulate the masses or something like that. But if you associate that with like the things that are happening in your daily life, then you need to think, well, how are they following what's going on in my daily life? So they need to kind of like be psychic perhaps, or maybe they're aliens from another dimension, or so it has to get like weirder and more bizarre to explain the phenomena, which is understandable if your only way of dealing with it is, that it's coming from the world. But it needs to become more elaborate to sustain itself and to survive until it collapses, which is what happened in my case, where the idea that something outside is causing synchronicity disappears, and you sort of know it as a natural phenomena of your own heart, which is the world. The world is your heart, experience is your heart, you are your heart, and everything is your heart, and synchronicity is just you waking up to this insight.
Yeah. Yeah, I've thought about how it becomes more intense as you look at it. And again, I always come to, well, I am the universe, or part of the universe, or all that is. So I'm a part of this web. And so I'm looking at one part of this web, and I'm looking at myself, so I'm I'm the universe, right, reminding myself that I'm the universe.
Yes.
That's what I come to every time. But it's still very wonderful. Some of the synchronicities can be so beautiful, especially the more you focus on beauty, that which is sacred, life.
Yeah.
And hummingbirds.
Exactly. And it's nature. It is nature. It's like, we're just realizing that the environment is part of ourselves, and it's in communication with itself, and it's not, and you have to kind of look beyond your identity as like just your mind and just your body and just your experiences, you're kind of like learning that what's happening out there is you. It's part of you, is connected to you, and you're in a dance with yourself. So it changes, totally changes. This is and I think it's one of the aspects of synchronicity that, makes it strange to people, or maybe frightening, or why people still like to think of it as something coming from external, because it actually dissolves your ego. It dissolves the boundary of your perception of what you are. And if you're identified with a limitation, like, okay, well, I am my mind, I am my body, I am the story that I've learned and that I've associated with since I've started, since I was becoming conscious as a human or whatever, then synchronicity, the meaning of synchronicity will chip away at that, because it's not the whole truth, that limited identity ego that one has. So it's a threat to that. And if you're trying to still attach to that idea of who you are as an individual, a limited, isolated individual, then sync is a bit of a threat. And I think the real meaning of sync is a bit of a threat. So often I feel like people don't really want to know, or they don't want to let themselves know the simple answer of what sync is, because it's a threat to their identity.
And it's certainly not something you can just tell somebody, because it has to be an experience for you to really, truly get it. It has to be within the realm of your experience.
It's just, it's an awakening. It's an awakening in oneself about your own nature. And that happens in many different spheres of existence. It's just one of the portals is sync. And, so, I mean, yeah, it has a spiritual, even religious, I mean, it depends, I mean, concepts. This is another thing about sync that I find fascinating, because to kind of get into sync and to, follow, you need to start really playing with concepts and realizing that the associations we have with words and meaning are flexible. We make them up. We create them. That's where meaning came from, or any association like you have in your mind with the word religion, and the whole story you have of that word. That's a convention, and it's something that you can play with. You can look at that word and decide what it means to you. So it doesn't have to be, it's concepts on prisons for experience. They're just like little windows into framing this, it's kind of like consciousness comes out of itself in a shape, but it's like a stained glass window. It's like, it's not, the forms that it comes out are not like they're not imprisoning the light, they're letting it through. This is the way sync becomes more like a stained glass window for consciousness. It lets the light through so that your the meaning of a thing goes through the object. It's not imprisoned by it. So it's not like you see the number 42 and there's only one association with that. Like it's only a number between 41 and 43. That's what 42 is. Like, no, you can look at 42 and go, well, whatever things associate with the word 42. Oh, it's the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has an association to 42, or it sounds like 4 and 2, like 4 two people. You can play with the meaning of anything, and it's kind of like letting the light through the concept instead of the concept just being the static thing. And then you realize meaning is kind of infinite for any concept, and you can play with it. And it's not something that, there's no rules to what meaning is and what associations you have with a concept. So this is, so when I'm saying religion, for me, it's kind of like sync is a religion in my mind, but in the purest form, where it's kind of like the purpose of it is to enlighten and to bring you closer to your own heart, your own like eternal nature, your eternal ever-present nature. And if that's what you mean by religion, then yes, I would say sync is a religion. So
yeah, one of the things about today, and why I've thought about why is sync becoming a thing now, whereas maybe it has been at another time, but why now? And some of the things I've come up with is because we are beyond religion in some ways, not beyond it, but because it's been used for so long to squash our spiritual journeys instead of assist us, and so many people have walked away from it, we still need something to get us there. We still need something. So this arises, sync arises out of the collective unconscious, or out of the universe, as a portal, like you say.
And I don't think of, I think religion that suppresses, I mean, it's mad. Religion that suppresses spirituality, is sort of, that's crazy.
That? Yeah.
That's crazy talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's right to say that that's kind of more the norm for most religions. It's almost like they're more like prisons for spirituality, to keep spirituality from existing in a way, to sort of create a conceptual prison for what divinity is. But it's certainly not where it comes from. Like any religion that exists on the planet today like its origin, what the fountain of what creates a church is Spirit itself. And it's a awakening that happened in an individual or in a group of people. And then over time, it just, becomes stale and old and identified with its own story as what's right. And then just decays and becomes like more like a cancer than a good thing. But I feel like its origins are in the examples that I can think of, the Christian church and the Muslim church and the Jewish church, all their origins, Buddhism, all that is like, if you go and read up about the origins, it's like, this is legit, that stuff is talking about love, and it just becomes a little dark over time. But it's not really the fault of the religion or the spirituality. It's just sort of this natural process of becoming identified with the doorways. And it's a common thing, becoming identified with the doorway of spirit, not spirit itself. So and it can happen even with sync, if you go, it's 42 or Jupiter or this movie, The Shining, or 2001: Space Odyssey, something about that has this significant quality to it, and it becomes your God. The symbol becomes your God instead of the spirit that comes through it. Then it's the same thing has happened to you. That's happened to religion. It's like, instead of your own nature shining brightly and the knowledge of that being your spirit, but the symbols and the doorways and the books and the texts and everything that leads you to that process becomes the thing that you think is spiritual. Then it's just a new hang up and crutch and something that is in actual fact something to hold on to keep you from spirit. There's spirit religion that isn't spiritual. It's just weird,
So this is what we do as humans. We become identified with, like you said, the doorway to spirit, with our own identity, with our own egos. Do you think there are other forces at work too, besides our own failings or our own processes? So, for instance, when we talk about religion and how it's this natural process of decaying and dying and becoming old, do you think that there's also, for instance, a co-opting process, or is that part of the decaying process? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess people co-opt things, but I don't know. I don't. I'm not really worried about any of that. It's like it's clear to me that whatever happens in experience is the heart itself doing its thing. It's going through a process. Some parts of the process are harder to see, the arc that bends towards the light, inevitably. Like if it's something that's like thousands of years of decay of a religion, it's hard to see how that arcs back to the light, but it does. It's inevitable. If you know the nature of experience itself, then you know that the whole story of experience is about the process of us becoming enlightened. And regardless what's happening in the narrative, it is supporting and working towards that overall agenda, because it's the reason why everything exists is to enlighten itself. So it doesn't really matter what forces are perceived on a small scale as working against that overall agenda, because in the end it is working for itself, because the only thing that exists is the self.
Wow, where do you go from there? No, where do you go from there? Around again on the same, on a spiral path, right?
Well,
So,
I feel like the purpose, if you know that, you are the self experiencing itself and everything, then it turns into a celebration of itself, which is, and then the idea is also it's kind of like bodhisattva. That's the idea, is to then to spread this to the other parts of yourself so that the whole thing becomes a celebration. And then that becomes the focus of your life, and your existence is sort of a conscious effort to enlighten yourself and the people around you, so that there's more, because it's kind of like the more people that are celebrating, the bigger the celebration and the more beautiful. And it just feels right. So that's what one does then. If you realize, okay, well, there's only this win-win situation, then you get with it. And the way to get with it is to work towards bringing peace.
yeah, and it does take spiritual practice. I don't think there's any way to get away from that, whatever your spiritual practice is. So whether it's, getting up and saying your thank you prayer, and, greeting the day with gratitude,
Yeah.
or, really consciously trying to bring compassion to every situation you encounter throughout the day. Whatever it is, we have to keep we have to keep reminding ourselves of this is what's important.
That's right. And and experience is basically made it's refining itself every day. Like new challenges will come up, new subtle dramas that pull you out of the knowing of your own spiritual nature, or your own self-awakened state, or the I am. Like things arise as sort of naturally as a refinement process of polishing that diamond of knowing, challenges and dramas that are sort of specifically tailored to take you out of the knowing, and then you work through them. And by working through them, you get practiced at working through them, and it becomes like that's the work you do. It's just constantly refining your own heart by through experience. And you sort of start to realize that's what experience is. It's like a polishing stone, or it's a big machine that just polishes the heart through experience. And experience is like constantly trying to get you to surrender something, or let go of a fear, or some hang up you have. Some of them are really deep, some of them are superficial, and experience is designed to find those and work them out, work out the kinks in your heart. And maybe that happens forever. And maybe that's just the sacred drama of experience. But that's sort of, you just sort of become conscious that that's what it is. It's like, okay, so my day will have these challenges, and it's in a way like, it's a sacred thing. You start to think of the challenges of the day as like as a sacred thing that you're going through so you can learn. It's always a learning process.
I've come to be able to look at, some of the bigger challenges in life, like after you get through them, you can look back and say, like, wow, look what I did, and look what I was able to work through, and look how I've grown, and wow. But what I hear you saying is like you can do that with every single challenge you have, not just the big ones. So, geez, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And I also, one of the central themes that seems to come up a lot in this show and in my life and the little dramas that help refine me is trauma. So I wanted to get your take on that, because it's just a constant theme of working through old trauma, trying to prevent new trauma. It's just ever present. So.
Yeah. There's certain experiences that they linger. They have a really heavy, quality to them. And it seems like they'll be with us forever, but they won't. Nothing is forever. Nothing in the world is forever. The only thing that's forever is the heart. It's sort of why the world can exist is that it is temporary, and that it's flowing, and that it's like something that's on a screen, just like a movie. Everything that you're experiencing. So no matter how ingrained or heavy, it's something that's on the screen of experience. Experience itself is the only thing that is eternal. And the more we know 100% that is the case, then even the sort of really heavy things in our lives that might be with us for the rest of our lives as an individual doesn't even, that heaviness might be there. Or like if your arm was chopped off, then the sacred drama of the rest of your life is going to include you not having an arm. But living in resistance to that reality and maybe the trauma you've experienced because of losing your arm or something other horrible thing that could happen to a person in the narrative of your life, that's going to be with you for the rest of your life, in brackets, as far as the individual expression of yourself is concerned. But knowing that your spirit, your essence, is the ground bed of all that is, will bring peace even to that. Even if it's a heaviness that can't go or a disability that can't change, you will learn to live with it, and it will somehow also be a teacher in your life, and there will be meaning to it. And if that heaviness is there, it still doesn't obscure the experience itself of experience. And so there's nothing that can be too heavy or too unbearable if you know yourself, because it's all happening on yourself and is yourself. So it's sometimes it's an ego thing. It's like we want to obscure the reality of our eternal self from ourselves by setting it up that there's this thing that we can't overcome, a situation or a condition in our lives that we've told ourselves is just way too extreme, and nobody else would expect us to either, because if you have a heart, how could you expect me to process this event or live with this event that has happened to me? And that's often a way the ego lets something survive in us that is holding us down or keeping us from, feeling the spirit itself. So it's a subtle trap that we can fall into, is saying that something has happened to us that's so bad we can't heal from it. And for me, it's kind of like, well, you can, or you will, or you won't heal from it, but it doesn't obscure the fact of who you are and the light from still being present in your knowing of it, of yourself.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's that. And then, there's the way that, hardship, makes you want to show others the way
Right.
out of hardship.
Right. And
So,
to have, the experience so that when you talk with other people about their hardships, you know what you're talking about. And that's sort of a healer is only a healer if they've gone through healing. Great healing. So it's sort of like a lot of healers, I feel like, part of their life journey will be to go through a lot of darkness and trauma, and because it's only like once you've worked through that you can be a healer. It kind of makes sense perfectly that being a healer would, for the most part, as far as I can see, like include an aspect of your life where you went through a lot of healing yourself.
and running away from your calling.
Yeah, and most healers I've met, except for, like I can't. There's like one or two exceptions that I can even think of. Most healers are just people that are actually working through their trauma actively. They're not masters. It's like most healers are just people who are actively using the activity of being healers to purify themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I would have to agree with that in my experience as well. And we have a lot of little mind traps or prisons about what a healer is too, or should be, or could be, or
Yeah.
was or is. All of
Oh
these
yeah.
little traps.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Cultural expectations. And I know for myself, I spent most of my life very sick with celiac disease, undiagnosed, and finally diagnosed myself. And so now I've come such a long way with my healing in that respect that I see others who have it and are undiagnosed, because basically 83% of people who have it are undiagnosed. And I have this overwhelming desire that I have to, I don't think not really suppress isn't the word, but to show others the way. Like, this is how you can do it. But then I remember that there were others who tried to tell me, maybe you should stop eating wheat. And I didn't hear them until I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to continually remind myself, let somebody just ask you. And I'm always, but it's hard to see so many people that are suffering in the same way that I did and probably don't know, why they're suffering. It's very difficult. But I guess it's just part of my journey to sit with that. Yeah, because I don't want to, be imposing in people's lives, and so it's a dance. That's for sure.
Where are you based, by the way? Just out of curiosity, like where are you calling from?
I live in where the Blue Ridge, the Alleghenies, and the Appalachian Mountains meet in the northwest corner of Virginia on the West Virginia border.
Uh-huh.
So there's beautiful. It's a very beautiful rural area. And we've settled here for the last 4 years, and before that I moved around West Coast, East Coast, North, South, my entire life. Moved around. So it feels weird to settle too, but it feels good. It feels really good. My husband also was very nomadic his whole life. And we met in Oakland, California, in the Bay Area. We met at a powwow, the Mills College powwow, 1997. Been journeying down the powwow trail ever since.
Cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. So down here, it's there's in the U.S. I think there's a big problem with food allergies because our food is poisoned. So since I discovered that I was so sick from what I was eating, I've really been on this journey of trying to produce my own food. So our goal is food sovereignty, getting off the grid. That's our life goal right now. It's a pretty big one. I think we're going to be working on it for a while. If we had more capital, we could probably get something going a little easier, but we have this challenge for a reason, the way it is now. So I've been learning how to eat what grows naturally. So I'm developing this gardening method that I allow the weeds to grow, not so much that they starve what I'm trying to grow too, but enough to where I can actually eat what wants to grow there naturally in the soil that's there, and has all the vitamins and the minerals that we're lacking in our diet. So I'll never stop learning there. The plants.
No.
You can never stop learning, and the plants will teach you if you slow down, and they have a different language.
Yeah. Plants are like amazing mystery. They seem to be like so key to everything that's happening. And yet when you look at them with, your conditioned mind, all you see is like just a very static thing that just sort of grows. It has no, it's very hard for the, I think the Western mind, or sort of, if you associate meaningfulness and importance to, things that are important in a traditional value system, like what does that even mean? But like, I think for a lot of people, things that are meaningful and important is something that you can identify with as, okay, well, it's valuable, or it can talk. It's like a human. It has a mind, so it's hard to see the beings around us, like plants, and the depth that they have in them, and this clear, infinite mystery of their relationship to us and what's happening on the planet. And the idea that there's a lot more going on under the surface and beyond the curvature of your own conceptual framework of the thing. This has definitely been something that, in my life,
Jake, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you guys. I'm going to
Yeah.
go ahead, but we have indication that we've lost stream. I'm hearing it on Studio A, but it may take a minute to get downstream. Okay. All
We
right.
Is
good?
that?
All good.
Okay.
Yeah, your background noise. Maybe that was it. And later, before we run out the second hour, maybe the last 15 minutes, I'd like to come in and share a little bit. A very synchronicity for myself as I got a message on my numbers, and before I even realized what the show was about. So for me, my life really syncs, and I'd like to maybe just read that off to Jake, or just give him the numbers and let him interpret it for me, perhaps.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll see you guys back here in just a little bit.
Alrighty. Okay.
Thanks.
So, sorry, Jake, you were talking about plants?
Yeah, just it's clear to me that it depends on how you evaluate cause and effect. It's just such vague concepts that I'm trying to express now. But in a way of looking at it, in the certain traditions that I'm involved in, like the ayahuasca scene. Like I did ceremony last night, and from that perspective, the plants are in charge more than the humans are, and what's happening on the planet, it's really more about the plants, and we have a role. I mean, I'm maybe I'm just flipping it because it's fun to flip it. Okay, the plants are in charge, but it's clear that we're in a relationship, and the mechanics of what's happening on the earth as a whole. If you think of it as one organism, it seems clearly with ayahuasca, and in that case, there's sort of like this presence that's come into the game, which has been 100% like life changing for me. And when I mentioned all the sort of perception changes of synchronicity and the meaning of synchronicity, this all happened at the very same time as I started doing ceremony. So to me, the understanding of sync as a spiritual thing and as a religion is to me really just a branch that comes out of ceremony and the relationship with the plants. To me, sync is more just a result of my understanding of sync is more a result of doing ceremony with the plants than anything else. The insight, I would say, comes more from the medicine than from some kind of mental process of thinking about synchronicity. It's more just sort of like an insight that has evolved along with starting to do ceremony. You can look at the arc of when I started doing ceremony and how I was working with synchronicity and how it's changed. And you can sort of see 100% how it completely veered into a realm of spirituality when I started doing ceremony. So it's clear that plants are one of, if not the most important, like influencing factor on this planet.
It would seem that they're pretty evolved beings, the plants. And my friend Dan DeLion introduced me to this concept of, they've evolved for thousands of years. And for instance, he said if a plant has qualities that would help you with inflammation, so anti-inflammatory qualities, for instance, the plant has developed that from maybe being stepped on or something, for over and over and over. It developed this anti-inflammatory quality for itself.
Yeah.
And then now you can benefit from that as well.
Yeah.
And so that's just like us as, in our own spiritual development, our own development as humans, is just like the plants. Okay, we're going to take a quick little breaky and we'll be back
Okay.
for the second hour. All right. Welcome back to the second hour of The Bridge with Kira. I'm your host, Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio, simulcasting with Real Liberty Media. And Tuesday, we'll do a replay of this over there on People's Internet Radio. So we got you all covered. And then after that, we'll put this on YouTube for anybody who missed it. Today, I'm talking to Jake Kotze. Welcome back, Jake.
Hi.
You were talking about ceremony before we took a break, and it's important to you because you've really made a lot of changes in your life since you started doing ceremony. So you were kind of talking about that.
Yeah, just ceremony really opened my heart. I would say is sort of the key thing. And I mean, we're doing that in everything. And, but it was definitely the big, and I'd already in my mind told myself that I'd done so much work and had become so, good at having an open heart. And I had this concept in me at the point I started doing ceremony. Oh, I've got it together, and I know what's going on, and I've been doing a lot of hard work, and I figured a lot of things out. But ceremony really annihilated me and humbled me and put me through the ringer and made me realize that I don't know what's going on and that I have a lot to learn, and sent me on a massive journey of a new phase of my life of purging subtle demons in me and working through lots of baggage that I had and have, and yeah, an amazing journey. And I feel like it's definitely, it's just been one of the most, as far as the focus goes in my life, if there's like, little, things that you can hold on to in the experience, sort of sea of experience that we go through, and you can keep coming back to, like, I keep coming back to, there's a few anchors in my life, and sync, that word itself, like when I was a teenager, the word would have been like Illuminati or, triangle or conspiracy or something like that. But there's a few anchors. Everything keeps coming back to that in my life. Truth, beauty, whatever you want to call it. But right now, in the last 10 years, my anchors have been like sync and ceremony. And it's sort of like those things that are the glue and the foundation of my experience, and have completely influenced each other and are inseparable in many ways in my mind, the sync and the ceremony.
Yeah. I think we all need ceremony. I think it's a part of being human that many of us have forgotten and don't realize how much we need it until we get it. And then we're like, wow, I really needed this. I didn't know I needed it. And I too have had that experience, recently of, I've worked through my trauma. I've got it together. I know what's going on. and then just being rudely reminded that actually no,
Yeah.
you really don't know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a given. If there's a you,
Mm-hmm.
if there is a you to be stable and strong, it's almost like you've stolen already in that thought and in that concept. You've already stolen from the infinite heart in sort of saying that me, the separate thing, the has some kind of power or has some kind of something that is unique or something that is not the only reason there is a separate I or an individual you is because of spirit. So if you're thinking of yourself as a separate I that's strong and stable, it's like you've already programmed in a humbling experience that will come and pull the rug out from under your feet
And remind you.
And remind you that you're only standing and that you only exist as part of something bigger than you.
And then there's also the positive reminder experiences of you being part of something larger than yourself, which is like the essence really of the mystical experience, the mystic's tale. You know, I've described it before as singing at powwows and everybody's singing and dancing, and the dancers are energetically feeding the singers, and the singers are feeding the dancers, and then we all, get these goosebumps, and then you suddenly feel like, okay, we're part of something much larger. And the song is sacred, and we're doing this together. And it's hard to really put in words, but it's definitely goosebumpy.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. It's just letting go of that barrier between yourself and experience, and not being. That's kind of what joy is, and what love is, and what health is that letting go or being in the state of not being split from your nature, which is whole. So the moment you're split, it's kind of like the moment you think, or the moment you've allowed yourself to become an isolated part of existence, that is already the core of disease, is you thinking that you're isolated and being lost from your true nature. And then through stages you go through learning that you're not separate. And then in the day-to-day, we call the little moments where there's a window into that non-separate state, the things that make us happy. Seeing something beautiful, hearing a song that's beautiful, and whatever we associate with positive things are just little windows into the true nature of ourselves. And then, of course, people who cultivate consciously a relationship with their with the reality of who they are through ceremony or activities like that. That's sort of like making the windows into joy the primary focus of your life, and then you're a spiritual person, or a person who is, your function in the society is to stare out the window into joy and to help bring that light in and to share that with people.
Yeah, to say to passersby, check this out.
That's right. Yeah. And I think for everybody, there's a healthy, there's a healthy amount of, you know, it, it doesn't mean you have to be somebody who is spiritual or interested in those things in order to have a relationship with the divine. I think it comes in different forms to people of that have all the functions in our society. And this is very much to me part of sync, the way that I practice sync. It's seeing the divinity in everything and cultivating a relationship with it in the day to day. For me, like movies and pop culture, I see myself and divinity and spirituality in those things, which are generally not associated by, I think a large group of spiritual people wouldn't associate like the things that I spend 90% of my time sharing, I think is so alien for people to like see that as a potential doorway to something deeply spiritual. But it's actually become my view that that's exactly why those things exist, like the movies and the celebrity culture that we live in that seems so decadent and far away from spirituality and so egoic. When you start viewing it from a sync mindset, it's like the power of it is enormous, and it actually seems to be a trick that spirit has played on us. It's by, okay, we've turned away from authentic religion and spirituality by and large, but we love movies and we love celebrities and we love pop, and it is just nature itself arising in a form that we can embrace it in. And then the moment we recognize, well, it is actually still spiritual, it's this amazing web of reminder of our own nature that is dancing in front of us, masquerading as like, mundane pop culture. And it's like, to me, the idea that, like we were talking about plants, and that word, I feel like all the words, if we start thinking of it like freely, start thinking with your heart, not with your mind, about the word plant. Well, it sounds like something that it's been put here and it's been planted. Okay, so you think it's like God has put the plants here. Or you could think of a plant as like an agent, like when you put something in the camp of your enemy, so it will help you win. You can think of plants as that. It's like an agent of the divine that's been planted on our earth to facilitate this awakening process. So you can play with the word plant enormously. And stars, to me, like the stars in the movies, become to me like fully the same as the stars in the sky. The associations one has with that, looking up at the sky in wonder and seeing the heavens and sort of the mystery of the infinite in that, and realizing that association, not for an arbitrary reason, is in the movies when you think of the stars and the celebrities. That when you look at it the right way, it becomes exactly like the night sky. It is full of constellations and connections, and it's literally a wonder machine to awaken if you look at it through sync. So it's this idea that the things that are mundane in our lives are somehow base and, things that we should turn away from. I don't believe that. I don't think anything has arisen on this planet, Monsanto or any kind of thing, I think has a divine purpose. Like I said, the arc of it, the process of it might be too big for my limited mind to be able to see, okay, well, how does that fit in? How does that madness of that event or historical incident or current war or whatever, how does it fit into the agenda of consciousness awakening on this planet? I don't know, because this is beyond my individual mind of understanding. And thankfully, because it's like we're talking about Spirit's plan, our plan, the heart's plan, which is beyond limitations, beyond conception. So the idea that any individual could or should understand what's happening in the world, and it's clearly unfathomable, but that it is bending towards the light, and its purpose is to bring light ultimately, is without a doubt. And I feel like us waking up to this is what changes these things from things that detract from Spirit to things that actually awaken Spirit.
Yeah, I mean, just Monsanto, you say, yes, we can think of Monsanto as this evil entity, but look at how those who have been awakened to what Monsanto is doing, look at how that response causes a focus on what is very important. What
Right.
is really important. So that's a small aspect of it. And,
Right.
And the plants, as teachers, you look at a plant and it can exist in a pot on its own. It can exist in the ground as part of a community. And the plant, when you look at the plants and how they can be both individuals and part of this community, or you can cut a piece off a plant and then it grows into its individual self. That's kind of how we are as spiritual beings. We're just sort of like chopped off, and we're growing somewhere else and growing our way back to where we came from. And this whole idea of the trees and how they all communicate with each other underground.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it than we even have begun to understand.
We interrupt the following program for the following announcements from the Buzz Beaver. It is 4:20, reminding you cannabis can.
Take your medicine. Alrighty. Thank you. That's one plant spirit that we can learn from too.
Yeah, and I think plants, they do give you this sense of being a spirit. Like you see an individual tree, but you get the impression that it's just one outcropping of a giant antenna that you can think of. Okay, well, there's a plant spirit. It has different aspects. It has a birch aspect. It has an elm aspect. It has whatever flowers and this huge. Actually, there's only one spirit, and all the trees and rocks and people and computers and everything is part of it. But let's say there's a plant spirit and it has these different aspects, and all the individuals, parts of it are just like little antenna that tune into that frequency of that spirit. So it's kind of like, it's not just in that one little elm tree has the spirit, or it is a spirit. It is like one spirit. And it's similar for me with sync concepts. It's like I start to realize when I think of the word Jupiter and I see a picture of Jupiter on my computer screen, that is Jupiter. I'm looking at Jupiter. Okay. It's just, glowing, photons and, matter on my screen. It's not actually the gas planet Jupiter, right? But I'm looking at a picture of Jupiter, and that picture has some of the spirit of Jupiter in it. And when I see the word Jupiter on a page, that word immediately, because I'm spirit looking at a word that evokes the meaning of a thing that I have a concept for, it's kind of like I'm tuning into the spirit of Jupiter by seeing a picture of Jupiter, by seeing the star Jupiter in the night sky, or it's like I'm realizing that the spirit of Jupiter is in every representation of it, just like an animal. When I see an animal, I feel like I'm seeing the elephant spirit. And here is an outcropping of that as an individual elephant, or as a movie with an elephant in it, or as a picture of an elephant, or the word an elephant, whatever. And then if I go even further, I can realize that things that resonate with that concept also contain the spirit of that concept in it. So if I realize that Jupiter's symbol, which looks like a 42, also contains its spirit, then there's a whole new thing that also contains the spirit of Jupiter. And if it looks like a 42 to me, then it's like the 42 contains the essence of Jupiter. And all the other associations I make. It's just sort of like sync really shows you that the essence of a thing is not confined by the object that is evoking the understanding of the thing itself. It's diffuse. And ultimately it's diffuse it's to the point where actually everything's essence is in everything else's essence. And it's actually your essence.
Yes, because we're all connected.
We're all connected,
You can say that, but again, it comes back to experience and ceremony for you. And I think actually for all humans, there's some piece of us that really kind of only responds to ceremony, or is changed by, or is awakened by ceremony. And you're doing it with ayahuasca. There's other types of ceremonies as well. Do you think that's important, or do you think that's just part of your individual story? You got there through the ayahuasca ceremony, and somebody else is going to get there through Sundance, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that there are infinite doors into spirit. It's also very clear to me that there's something special about the ayahuasca and that particular door and its role on this planet as a door, as a key door. Its significance does seem very singular to me. But there's no doubt that there are infinite amounts of doors, and everybody has their own way of interacting with spirit. And it's also clear to me that the good that is done through the ayahuasca door is something that benefits everybody, not just people who participate in that. And I don't necessarily think everybody's their specific destiny is to interact with that door. It's something that you might not have a calling for whatever reason. Whatever you're doing in your life is perfect. And yeah, so I attribute a specific and singular importance to the ceremony door. And I mean, it's even more specific for me because I don't know if I can't speak for ayahuasca ceremony in general. I can only speak for the community that I'm involved in and the medicine that comes from Maestro Juan Flores. I have some misgivings about certain ceremony. I've heard about ceremonies and in other places and other communities that I don't resonate with. But I can't speak for those individual groups, but I can definitely speak for the group that I'm part of. And it does feel like there is a special, unique situation happening there that is beneficial to everyone. And anyone is welcome, and it's at the same time, there are infinite doors and portals for experiencing divinity. So yeah.
So you're part of this community in Winnipeg that's been learning the ayahuasca ceremony from Juan Flores, who is from Peru, correct?
That's correct,
yes.
Yeah.
I did have a conversation with Jim Sanders a couple of years ago about, and that was my first conversation about ayahuasca, and I learned a lot, and I was really amazed at how similar the similarities in that ceremony to other native ceremonies, like to Lakota ceremonies and things, even though the Lakota Red Road is like a different type of ceremony. There's 7 sacred ceremonies in the Lakota tradition. The sweat lodge, which is the purification ceremony, is a ceremony in itself, but is also you go through the sweat lodge before any other type of ceremonies as well. And the Sundance and the sacred pipe, and there's 3 or 4 other ceremonies, but I was amazed at in particular the role that tobacco plays in activating the vine.
That's right, yeah.
It's not just the vine itself, it's this relationship between the vine and the tobacco.
Yeah, very much.
So I've been interested ever since I had that conversation with him about it. And Juan Flores seems to also want to bring this ayahuasca ceremony to other natives, so to North American natives.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, we had a beautiful native singer in ceremony last night, playing his drum and singing his specific songs. So we had the Peruvian Icaros, and we had the singing and the drumming of this local native man in ceremony last night. It was just beautiful,
That sounds really nice.
Comes together perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems the conscious expression of the community that I'm involved in's agenda of facilitating peace on earth through ceremony is unique in my experience. Like a lot of ceremony, it's for healing, and of course that is the goal of our ceremony too. It's healing of the individual, but the goal is really for peace, for everyone. And I rarely hear that expressed so clearly and honestly and in groups that I don't even know if I find it rare that is expressed sort of as a true thing, from most individuals, that their goal is to help bring peace to the planet. 100%. That is your goal. That is what you're trying to do with your life. and to believe that as something that's rational, practical, and desirable, and to say that that is what you want. So that's what I feel makes the group that I'm involved with unique, is that we say that that's what we want, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're doing.
Well, that's something that we need in this world, so I'm glad you're doing it. Today, last year I received a package in the mail from a person named April Chirpaw, who sent me tobacco seeds from Winnipeg, and I planted them today.
Wow.
So, that was meaningful for me, because I think what you're doing is important, and I hope that I can bring that tobacco back someday to Winnipeg after it's grown down here.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And, all ceremony is for all beings.
Of course.
Yeah. And so we, and the sun dance is the same, and when we pray in the sweat lodge, it's it's the same. The sun dance is for life to continue. Literally. and like you said, in all actual, in practicality and in intention, and this is for life to continue.
Yeah.
So for the people to go on.
Yeah.
And in that way, these ceremonies are quite, I think, complementary. And whatever your calling is, if your calling is to whatever direction your calling brings you to, that's part of your journey, and that's what you're here to do. So I feel like I'm here to support people who want to bring ceremony back into the world, or I should say back to the people who need it, or who feel that it's their role to participate in it. And that's been a long time thing for me. I started writing poems about ceremony when I was a child, never having been to one until much later in life, my 20s, until my 20s. So how did my spirit know that? Well, because I'm part of the whole, right? Yeah. So I'm really glad to hear about your experience up there in Winnipeg, and I just have a good feeling about it, and I have ever since I talked to Jim about it.
Yeah. I definitely feel it seems like magic that I'm able to participate in it. Cause it's sort of like something that I opened myself up to in my childhood. Like I remember kind of like giving myself to the universe at some point. Like I was experimenting with LSD and altered states, and I was really into kind of unusual things as a teenager, pyramids and occult things and whatever. And at some point, I don't know, I just had this moment where I felt like I was like surrendering myself to the universe, saying, I want my life's journey to be whatever I can do to most assist in bringing enlightenment to myself and the world. Whatever I can do, I want that to happen in my life. I said that to the universe and believed that it was possible to, if I surrender myself to that, to be taken where I need to go. And that's exactly what happened. when I did that, it's like my life journey through the normal context of my life, but it invariably, like a bullseye, brought me to exactly where I have a community and an infrastructure and a network that feels to me real to help facilitate that impulse that I had. And now it's shared, and I realize it's much bigger and different, and everything's changed from the perspective of that teenager had. But it's like that sort of wanting to participate somehow in something that can change the world, and believing that it's possible, made it happen. I wouldn't say I made it happen, but it's like I allowed it to happen by surrendering myself to that impulse. And then feeling myself sort of like strange attracted, just like sync. It's like all the things in my life happened that I ended up here, and it seems like magic. But it's exactly the thing that I imagined could be possible. So it seems like a miracle as well. And it just seems to, I just keep getting more and more convinced that whatever your heart wants, if it's the will of the entire heart, if it's the heart, it's not like your individual heart wants, it's like the heart wants. If the heart wants peace, it will orchestrate all the pieces of itself to manifest that. And the idea that it's not possible is actually just a fear or a sort of limitation that you're imposing on the infinite, which is not true. Your heart is infinite potential. Everything comes out of the now and is your heart manifested. The entire story is your heart manifested. And the idea that it doesn't have infinite power to change is kind of like you stealing from your own heart or limiting your own will and beauty and freedom. And basically it's just ignorance to not believe that the most desirable thing, peace for yourself and everybody else, isn't possible, isn't in actual fact the goal of everything, when you kind of actually start thinking about it clearly, and is what the planet is about. It's funny, like the earth is an anagram for heart. That's another sort of wordplay that doesn't seem to me at all arbitrary. It's like, this is literally the heart. We're living in the heart. This is the heart manifest. And there's another, for me it's fascinating that Winnipeg is the heart of the continent. It's the center of the American continent, the North American continent. And, you know, that one florist came here, brought the medicine here, and that, and how me and Jim met, you know, all these sort of millions of little bits of story narrative, but it's in a way just the heart manifesting. It's just the coming together of the story of the heart realizing itself. And then us telling a story about it to try and convince ourselves that it's doable, when it's actually like, it's not actually only doable, it's the only thing that's happening is the heart realizing itself and becoming more loving by realizing itself. So everything, we're just realizing everything is love already. And as that knowing grows, everything becomes more loving. It's like a natural thing. And we're just telling ourselves a story about how that's possible through calling it ceremony and calling it plants and calling it whatever it is, all these sacred doors. It's
We're getting Jake back. Sorry, he cut off there. Are you back? Jake? You back?
There. I don't hear him yet.
Okay. Oh, he cut off again. Oh, that was getting good. Hold hopefully we'll get him back. So Vince.
Well, Sarah, I have to tell you, I've known the many Vinnies as connecting voices, but I'm going to have to pass my crown over to you. You have the absolute best guest of anyone. I mean that seriously, hands down. You're awesome.
I'm going to miss you on your trip, and I know it's going to be a really, really, really good one.
Check it out. While we're waiting on Jake to come back. So it's what I've done is I've made me a swinging camp. I'm not afraid of getting ate by a bear, but I don't want to get ate by no hog. So I'm gonna be living off the ground. Is what I've done. Is what I've done is I've taken a bed frame. You know, the wire frames with the angle iron frame, and then the wire meshing. So it's what I've done. I've suspended that with chains on each end, and placed it up in the tree. Got me a pad down, and I have a mosquito net that I will set on top of that and be off the ground and swinging into trees. And beneath it, I have two, about, 30-gallon barrels that I will be placing at each end. So when I go to move down the trip, I will look my gear onto there, and I'll swim behind it, pushing it, and float it down through the channels that keep down. And when I come to a sandbar, I'll unload, drag it on down. And, so it's a 9-mile stretch of river, and so I'll go down. I'll set camp first day out, and as a day or two, I'll go ahead and I'll move down. I will find the most isolated spot in between there and my destination.
Beautiful. It sounds like Jake is back. We got you back, Jake?
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, we lost you for a second. You were, of course, in the middle of something profound.
I'm sure it's good that I got cut off.
Boom.
Hey, if I can interrupt, let me throw these numbers here. Okay, my name is Vincent Easley. There's 13 letters in my name. Those 13 letters total to 55. There are 5 vowels and 8 consonants. The number is 1. So from there, let me ask you for a bit of interpretation.
Specifically 13, I mean, it's a huge number. I mean, it's so huge. There's so many associations with 13. For me, I don't really believe that what I associate with 13 needs to have any bearing on what it means for you. I feel like if you just open yourself up to what 13 means, it'll just come and it'll be perfect. Well,
I gotta tell you, I have learned to hear the soft, the quiet voice inside, and that whispering of the universe, and not to just to jump in the stream, but to actually, I guess, ride in it and avoid the eddies and the currents and all that. For me, I spent most of my time in life here fighting against it, and now that I've learned to get wet, I guess, it's wonderful.
I mean, 13. I mean, the first thing that comes up is sort of, I spent a lot of time meditating on the clock face last year. I made a sync video, all about time travel. Like, I took all the time travel movies that I could reasonably consume in the amount of time I had and watched them, and then made a sync video out of them. So one of the big things was just sort of thinking about what is time. And it just really became to me like a mandala, like the clock face just became to me like a mandala. It was just like, and that's what I think it is. It just is like a circle that we decorate, and we've got numbers going around it, and it's spinning, and it's just this beautiful mandala. It's just a circle dot, primary circle dot, just like the solar system is the sun in the middle. It's like a circle dot, and the planets orbit around it. Or like the symbol for gold is like a circle dot, or it's just sort of one of the most primary building blocks of all like symbol systems. You know, you'd have like the indigenous wheel would be like a circle dot, and then it's just divided into 4, or the cardinal points. So it's really just the most basic representation of God is like the circle dot, really. And then the clock like has 12 markings around it, but the center point would be 13 in that. So it's sort of like this really iconic position for divinity is that 13th number. And it's the same with Jesus and the 12 apostles. He's the 13th, you know, if you look at the Da Vinci painting, he's in the middle with the 12 apostles around him. And, so 13, very key sacred number. And then, you know, just like it's funny because it's always with dates. I was thinking about this. I had this weird insight the other day with, I was looking at a plastic container, and, I was looking at the months of the year, and it's like January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. And the first letters of all of those, if you take and you write them down, it actually spells Jason. The word Jason is in there, is in the 13, in the 12 months that we have. And Jason is like obviously the character from the movies Friday the 13th. So there's this thing that the strange attraction to the number 13 and dates. And we have this significance about Friday the 13th as like an unlucky thing. But there's just this, it's something about the year and the orbit of the planet around the sun and the divisions of the divisions of the years into quadrants. And then it's just this fascinating relationship between the number 13 and the center point, really, about the Son and the Son of God, Jesus. So, I mean, those are just the thoughts and feelings I have about 13.
There's 13 moons in the calendar year.
That's right. It's a very calendrical associated
and
number.
13 sections on a turtle's back, like or shell. So there's 13 sections on there, or you know, if you look at a turtle, and no matter what size the turtle is, it always has those 13 sections on the shell. You know, unless something takes a bite out of it or whatever. But
yeah.
What else? 13.
This past Friday the 13th for me was an incredibly apocalyptic day. Such revealing. Everything gave me indication of my decision that I'd been already made, but had been waiting for it to be the right time. So there was no unlucky or bad things on this past 13th or Friday the 13th for me. It was wonderful. So apocalyptic, of course, meaning revealing for those that are otherwise challenged to the fact that it's not it means revealing, not the end of the world.
Yeah. I mean, anything that can be destroyed, even if you think about the word apocalypse in a way that means the end of the world, if you go with that association of it, the only world that can end is the illusionary world, is the world of things. The real self can't end. It's like thinking if a movie stops, the screen goes away. It doesn't. So the only ending, an apocalypse can only be like a stripping of illusion. And it's really, it's this word that seems to me one of the most prominent this year, that word apocalypse. I've just been hearing it like every day. And, you know, the movie that came out this weekend was X-Men Apocalypse. And it's also in the trailer for the new Ghostbusters movie. They talk about the apocalypse. And there's another movie coming out with the Four Horsemen Now you see me too. So it's a huge theme of this year. And there's this poster over Winnipeg of like Donald Trump, and it says apocalypse, and like it's really happening. And Donald Trump's face and the word apocalypse all over it. And we had this fire, this huge fire.
It's like had
Canada.
problem with you said Donald Trump. Oh my God, I avoid that.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, totally. It's a good thing. Embrace it. The apocalypse, I think it's a good thing. Because the only thing that can end is illusion, right? Nothing real can end. And,
that's awesome. It really is.
You were saying something about a fire, though.
Yeah, there was this huge fire in Canada,
mm-hmm.
in Alberta, and everybody was just saying it looked like the apocalypse. It looked like the apocalypse.
It looked pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's a word that seems to me to be very resonant of this year, which, yeah, for me just means an unveiling, as you said. Yeah. It's just the continued truth of ourself becoming aware of our own true nature. And this is an apocalypse to the ego and the limited sense of individual self, because it is a death of that perception. And if you are fully identified with that, then that seems very real. The threat of the new state of consciousness is an apocalypse to that limitation. And that's why in ceremony, I mean, and even for me as an individual, the trauma of some of the moments I've had of confronting the reality of what existence is and of what I am was frightening, and it really seemed like madness and death to me. Now I just realized I was just attached to a limitation of who I am. But the letting go of that seemed like literal madness and death and the end of the world to me at the time. So it's understandable that from certain people's perspectives, maybe even from the masses' perspective, there's a lot of fear. It's very clear there's a lot of fear in the world. And it's, to me, clearly, it's about what we're talking about. It's us realizing ourself and sort of this fear reaction expressing itself as the context of the world and the way it is currently. So there is an apocalypse happening, and it's the awakening of ourself to our own nature.
And, I guess that's a good place to leave it. We're going to be wrapping up here pretty shortly in the next couple of minutes. If people want to see your videos, your YouTube video is where your YouTube videos are is Sea Lion. Is that correct?
That's right.
Sea Lion.
Seal Lion. Two L's in there. SEALLLION on Twitter, on YouTube, also Vimeo, and Jake Kotze on Kotze on Facebook. Thanks. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Kira. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you, Vince.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I hope that we get this opportunity to talk again, and I hope that I also get the opportunity to come to Winnipeg someday.
That'd be great.
Winnipeg has been kind of sinky for me the past couple of years. I've connected to a few people up there. and I never realized that it was the center of the North American continent. So
Yeah.
thank you again, Jake.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Kira.
Bye.